Today we'll start with MMPM001 consumer behavior, right? Consumer behavior, consumer. Who is consumer, right? What is consumer behavior? Actually, what is consumer behavior? What is the nature of consumer behavior? The decision process and physical activities engaged in when evaluating, acquiring, using, or disposing of goods and services, that is known as consumer behavior. Let us elaborate each and every term. The decision process and the physical activities. See, whenever we want to have something, we have to decide, right? And the decision, there is a decision process involved in that, or there are the physical activities involved in. What are the physical activities? The physical activities or the decision process involved in evaluating means the first step of evaluation is identification of need. What I need, this is first and the foremost requirement. First of all, the consumer should identify his or her needs, right? After identification of the needs, proper identification of the needs, the consumer start gathering the information, right? The information could be when consumer, it could be of two type. When consumer is not, when consumer don't have any type of the information, then they start acquiring information from scratch, right? And if they have some information, right, then they start increasing, getting more information or the knowledge about the product which can satisfy their needs, or the services which can satisfy their needs. So, and after getting the information, they start evaluating, comparing the products available in the market. They come to know the products or the services available in the market, and then they start comparing the product or the services which can satisfy the needs or wants of the consumer. So the decision process or the physical activity engaged in evaluating. After evaluation, right, after comparing the product, the consumer acquires that product and start using that product, right? After using or disposing of the goods and the services, they give their feedback. If they feel satisfied with the product, they can intend to repurchase that product, or they can dispose of if they feel dissatisfied, if they don't, if that product doesn't meet the needs of the needs and wants of the consumer, then consumer can dispose of that product, right? So what is consumer behavior? Consumer behavior is the decision process or the physical activities engaged in evaluating, acquiring, using, or disposing of goods and services, right? So it's a complicated process, right? Consumer behavior is complicated. It is a process, it's a decision process and physical activities engaged in evaluating, acquiring, and using or disposing of product or these services. Who is consumer? You might have heard two words, consumer and customer. Who is consumer, right? Consumer is a person or a group who intended to order or uses the purchase goods, products, or services primarily for the personal, social, family, household, or similar needs, right? And not directly related to the entrepreneur or business activities. As per Wikipedia, who is consumer? Who purchases the goods and the services for its own use, for societal use, for family use, for household use, right? Or the similar, to fulfill the needs of the family, to fulfill the needs for individual needs or the personal needs or the social needs, right? That is known as the consumer. They are not directly related to any business activities or the entrepreneur activities. Means when you purchase the product to for self usage or for family or for someone else, then that is known as the consumer. And the customer is one who actually purchases the product or services from a particular shop or the organization, right? Then that is known as a customer. Consumer, suppose if I buy a product and use it for myself, then I'm a consumer. Customer is when someone else buys that product, right? Purchases that product or services from the particular shop or organization. See, in consumer behavior, decision making is a complicated process, right? Various factors plays an important role in consumer decision making, right? This is a simple model of consumer decision making, right? There are three processes of consumer decision making: the input, the process, and the output, right? The various factors which act as an input for the decision making, then there is a process, and then comes the output, right? The various inputs are the external influences, like firms marketing effort, like product promotion, price, channel of distribution. This could be the input. Social cultural environment, like family, informal sources, non-commercial sources, social classes, subculture, and culture, right? These input, as you can see the arrow in there is head on there is both way in arrow there are two heads, right? That is, the input can create a need for this input. The external influences or the social culture environment can be responsible for the creation of need of the consumer. Suppose at times I see some product in the market, and I feel like, oh, I need this product. I should have this. I should have that product, right? Before that, I never felt like that I need that type of a product. But after seeing some advertisements, or after coming across some product, I feel like I need that product. So some external influences plays an important role in creation of the needs of the product, like the product itself could create a need of the product. The promotions, advertisements, and other sales promotion offers, right? At During offers or the sale time, everyone feels like it's time to purchase the product. We will use it later on. It will might need it in future, right? Price could be the external influencer factor. Okay, this the rate has gone down, let's purchase this product, we will use it later on. Or the channel of distribution, right? It could be influencer factor which can create the need of the product. Or other socio-cultural environment, like family could create a need. Other sources, when I come to know about a product, informal sources, then I felt like that I should have that product, right? Our social class or culture or subculture plays an important role in creation of the need. Or it could be vice versa, right? Suppose I need a product, then other external influences, right? They can help me, right, in identification. That when I identified my needs, then it can help me in gathering the information, right? Suppose these input factors, they have created a need, right? Created a need. Or it could be other way around. Suppose consumer feels like, or a customer feel like, they have identified their needs, that this is required, this is what I need, this I need this type of a product, right? After that, they do what the consumer do. They pre-purchases the search. They do the pre-purchase searches, right? Pre-purchase search could be again of two types. First is if they have knowledge about the product, right? Or if they don't have any knowledge about the product, which can satisfy their needs and wants. If they don't have knowledge about the product, then the other input factors plays an important role, like product promotion, they plays an important role. And if they have some knowledge about the product, or if there is something in their mind, they assimilate that information, and then they start collecting some information from the external environment, and they start gathering the information, right? And After gathering the information, they come to know about the product which can satisfy their needs. They start evaluating the alternatives which can better satisfy their needs and wants. And in this process, the psychological factors like motivation, perception, learning, personality, attitude plays an important role, right? These helps in searches like motivation, how motivated you are to satisfy your needs, what is your perception, right? Learning and personality and attitude plays an important role in need recognition, pre-purchase searches and evaluation of alternative. After evaluation of the alternative, it leads to it the experiences, the experiences comes out, right? It can give rise to our experiences, right? Then evaluation of the alternative, after evaluation of the alternative, they make the final purchases. After the final purchases, right? If that product is able to satisfy the needs of the product, needs or the wants of the consumer, or in other words, if consumer is satisfied with the product or consumer is dissatisfied the product, it leads to the experiences of the consumer, right? After evaluation of the alternative, they acquire it, they consume it, and this leads to the experiences, right? And this experiences or the process leads to the post decision behavior, right? Whether we have taken a right decision or not, right? That is the output. If consumer is satisfied with the product, right, then they can repeat the purchase, right? If not, then they will not repurchase that product. If some consumer is satisfied with the brand, with the product, it can lead to the brand loyalty, or they can repeat their purchase. If they are not happy with the product, with the performance of the product, they can dispose of that product, right? So this leads to, this output leads to the purchases, that is the trial or the repeat purchases, and post purchase evaluation. Then they post purchases the evaluation. So this is a simple model of consumer decision making. Various external factor and the internal factor or the individual factor or group factor plays an important role in consumer decision making, and all the marketing or the marketers should pay attention to these group decision factor as well as individual factor, because these factors ultimately impacts the decision making of the consumer, whether to purchase that product or not, right? Like first factor is the individual factors like motivation, perception, learning, personality, attitude. All these are the individual factors, right? Group factors like family, social class, subculture, cultures, all these are uh, group factors. Let us discuss the individual determinants which helps in decision making, consumer decision making. The first is motivation and involvement, right? All of us are consumers, right? With a given society, all of us has this some alternatives to choose from, and yet not to consumer may exhibit the identical consumer behavior. Because why it is like that? We all are consumers, right? We have same type of alternative available to us, but we all choose different alternatives. We never show the same type of or the identical consumer behavior, right? Why? Because each one of us is a unique individual with unique sets of needs, desires, and motivations. Because our desires, our needs, and our motivations are different from each other's, right? A motivation is that internal force which arouses or activates some need and provides direction of behavior towards the fulfillment of that needs. What is motivation, right? Motivations are actually those internal forces which arouses or activates some needs, right? Our needs motivates us, right? Or it has given rise to this some needs, and this motivation provides us the direction to fulfillment of our needs, right? See, we all have needs, right? Right? And this motivation is an internal force which helps us to fulfill our needs, which guides us to fulfill our needs, right? Motivation may be psychological, maybe physiological, maybe psychological, maybe physiological in nature, toward directed towards the fulfillment of biological needs such as hunger or thirst. And other motivation could be psychological in nature, focusing on the satisfaction of the psychological desire such as need of seeking status. See, motivation is reason for one's action is motivation, right? Being a human being, we all have our needs, and these needs motivates us to fulfill our needs, right? We all have needs, and these needs, this is known as internal motivation. Our internal motivation, our needs motivates us to take action so that we can fulfill our needs. Needs could be physiological or psychological. Physiological needs like our basic needs, sleep, clothes, shelter, right? Hunger, thirst, all these are our physiological needs. Biological needs are basic needs. We try to fulfill our physiological needs, and there are certain psychological needs. Psychological needs means satisfaction of psychological desire, like we want like esteem needs is psychological needs. Esteem needs means we want some status in society, right? So there are physiological needs and the psychological needs. Everyone has both physiological and the psychological needs, and we each fulfill them in a different way, right? We all have basic needs. We all need food, cloth, shelter. We need finances, right? We have social needs, right? We have psychological needs, like we have esteem needs, we have self realization needs, right? We all have needs, but we all fulfill them in a different ways, because our needs are different, our wants are different. The reason why we adopt different method of satisfaction of motivation is because of differing level of personal involvement in various activities. Involvement refers to the personal relevance or importance of a product or services that a consumer perceives in a given situation, right? Why we adopt a different method of satisfaction? Method of satisfaction of our motivation, it is because of differing in level of personal involvement in various activities. And why there is a difference in involvement in the personal involvement in the activities? Because of this involvement refer to the personal relevance or importance of a product or services that a consumer perceives. That is, according to consumer, how important that product or that service is in a given situation, right? Suppose if someone feels like that in this situation, this service or product is very important, I need that product or service badly, right? Then there will be the different level of motivation. And if someone feels like no, I need that but still it is not that important, then the level of motivation could be different. Suppose someone wants to buy that health insurance, right? Because of the health reason, they feels like "Nee, I should have health insurance," right? Because of many factors, right? It could be because of the age factor, right? As such, there is no health issues, but because of the health, because of that cost of the cost involved in the health factor, health industry, right? Or other factors, someone feels like I badly needs the health insurance, then their personal involvement is different from those who don't feel like that they need health insurance. So according to how they perceive how important that product is or the service is for them, then this directly is related to their level of motivation. High involvement leads to high level of motivation, or high motivated state of mind and high involvement and high motivation lead to a consumer behavior process which is distinctively different from that of low involvement and low motivation. Obviously, if someone is highly involved and highly motivated, then their behavior will be different from those who are low motivated and low involvement. There is a who are not that much involved in the process because their needs are different from others need. Our needs motivate us to perform, right? So motivation plays an important role, and our needs motivate us. And what is consumer behavior? Consumer, what is the consumer behavior? That is, they want some product or services which can satisfy their needs and wants. The second internal factor which plays an important role in decision making is attitude. Attitude, what is attitude? Perception of an individual is attitude towards something, towards some event, towards someone is attitude. Perception of an individual towards something, towards someone, towards some event is attitude, right? And it is our learned predisposition, right? It is towards object, people, or the event. It is our attitude which influences how we respond to the different product and the services, right? Perception, what is, as I told, what is attitude? My perception, perception about something, about someone, about some event is attitude. So it is our attitude which influences how we behave or how we respond to the different products and these services. If my perception towards something is positive, I behave differently. If I feel like I don't need that product, right, then my attitude would be different. Attitude are not inborn, right? That is, it is not static. The best thing about attitude is it is not static, it is dynamic, and it changes with time. As our need changes, our attitude changes. Suppose at this time I don't feel like I need X type of a product. Maybe after, when my need changes, when my attitude, when my perception changes, right, I feel like I need that product, right? So attitude are not inborn in us. Our attitude influences our purchase decision and the consumption, right? Our attitude plays an important role in purchase decision. If my attitude towards a certain product is positive, then I feel like, then it will impact my purchase decision and the consumption. And if I feel like I don't need that product, right, then it will impact my purchase decision and the consumption. Then personality and self concept plays an important role in decision making. A related construct, self concept or self image, is a way we perceive ourselves in a social framework. How we see ourselves in social framework, that plays an important role. Personality is a complex combination of many things, right? And this personality and self concept is a related construct. This self construct or the self concept or the self image is how we perceive ourselves in a social framework, how we see ourselves. We attend to buy only those products and services which we think fit or match with our personality or are in conformity with our self concept, right? Suppose if my personality is of X type, right, I feel like this will suit me, I need that product, right? Or whether it is acceptable in the society or not, right? Then it plays, and that this plays an important role in decision making, right? Suppose being a teacher, we perceive ourselves in a social framework, what is expected from us, how should what we all need, right? And we always tend to buy those products which we think fit or match with our personality and the self concept, right? uh, uh, Next is learning and memory plays an important role, right? We only remember the information which is of relevance and important to us, where we have motivation to remember. See, lots of information is a barrier, right? We only tend to remember only that information which is relevant to us, which is required, and we have a motivation to remember. Our motives, attitude, and personality act as filter by letting in only relevant information and keeping all information out. See, what are our motives, what we need, our needs, our wants, right? Motives, our attitude, my perception about something, and my personality, right? They act as a filter, and they let in only relevant information and keeping all other information out, right? We would see the product, hear its jingle, but chances are it will not register in our mind. We'll remember it only for a short while and then forget it. This is known as the selective retention. We all have selective retention, right? Let me explain it with an example, right? A child remembers a jingle of a toy, right? Because that motivates that toy, that child needs that toy, or that toy motivates the child, right? And maybe mother or father may not remember that, right? A person who drives, right, may remember, say, some anti-skidding tire, or something which can remove the scratches from, some spray which can remove scratches from the car, right? That can be in the memory of a person who drives. And a person who cooks can remember the jingle of, say, uh, some utensil, or some masalas, right? So we all have a selective retention. We all remember the things, or the jingles, or information which are relevant to us. And our attitude, our personality, our motive plays a role of filters, right? They only let in that information which is relevant to us, and we remember only that information which is relevant to us, and this is known as the selective retention. All of us have a selective retention. A person who cooks can remember a jingle of a masala or utensil, or a person who drives can remember something which is related to the car usage, or a child could remember a jingle, or a ad, or something of a chocolate or a toy, right? So we also all have a selective retention. Now, information processing. What is information processing? This refers to the process and activities which consumer engage in while gathering, assimilating, and evaluating the information, right? If you remember that, let me go back to that thing. Pre-purchase evaluation and alternative pre-purchase searches, right? This information gathering is pre-purchase searches, right? Pre-purchase searches is what? The process or the activities when consumer engage in while gathering the information which can satisfy the needs or wants of the consumer, right? Then they assimilate that information. They try to gather the information from the various sources, then they assimilate that information. After assimilating, they evaluate that information, and by evaluation, they would come to know what product or which service can satisfy their needs and wants. The manner in which we assimilate and evaluate this selective information is determined by our motives, attitude, and personality and self concept. See, we have gathered the information being a consumer, we have gathered the information of the product or the services which can satisfy our needs or the wants. Then we start assimilating, right, and evaluating the information. Then, while we are assimilating or evaluating the information, right, this is this assimilation and evaluation. Evaluate this the manner in which we assimilate and evaluate this information is it is determined by our motives. What is our motive, right? What we need, it is determined by our we assimilate and evaluate it on the basis of our attitude, on the basis of our motive, on the basis of our personality, on the basis of our self concept, right? We gather the information, right? Now we start assimilating and evaluating it, right? That the our motives, our self concept, our personality, our attitude plays an important role in assimilation and evaluation of the information. These were the few individual determinants which plays an important role in a decision making process. Now there are the group determinants also, right? If you remember that diagram, there were few group determinant at the top, and these group determinants were the like group determinants like cultural influences, right? Cultural influences, the first of influences is that is the cultural variable. What is culture? Any man-made thing is culture. Can be defined as complex sum total of knowledge, beliefs, traditions, customs, art, morale, laws, and other habits acquired by the people as a member of society. So culture influences us. This is acceptable in our culture and this is not acceptable in our culture. We usually say in our culture this is acceptable and this is not acceptable, right? This is our culture and this is not our culture. We usually say this thing. But what is culture? What is culture? It is sum total of many things. It is sum total of your knowledge, your tradition, your beliefs, your custom, your art, your morale, your laws, and other habits acquired by a people as a member of society. Culture of one society may differ from the another society. Many of our actions and behavior as a consumer stems from our cultural background, right? So, suppose in our culture, X is allowed and Y is prohibited. In some other culture vice versa could be true, right? So culture of one society differs from the other society, right? Many of our action and behavior as a consumer stems from our cultural background, right? Suppose in marriages we usually prefer to wear, a bride usually prefer to wear a red, green, or something like that. We avoid white or blacks because we don't consider these color as the auspicious colors, right? While red, green, orange, all these we consider all these colors as the auspicious color. This is because of our beliefs, of our tradition, right? So while in western countries bride wears white gown, right? So these cultural there are our culture plays an important role in our in consumer behavior and decision of the consumer. Many of our action and behavior as a consumer stems from or depends on our culture, right? Then again, there are subcultural influences. Inside the culture, there are subculture. Within a given culture, there are many group or segment of people with distinct customs, traditions, and behavior, which set them apart from the other people. This subculture, as a part of the culture mainstream on account of the dress, food habits, religious traditions, and rites, offer interesting implications for the marketers. These subculture again opens up a market, or it offers an interesting implications for the marketer, because subculture stems from the culture, right? Within a culture there could be the groups or the segment of people with distinct customs, right, or the traditions or the behavior, right, which sets them apart from the other people, right? These subculture, as a part of same culture, there could be the subculture on the account of their dress, right? Then it could be on the basis of their food habits or the religious traditions. So subculture plays an important role, right? Then the social class influences. These are the some external influential factor or the determinants which impacts the decision making of the consumer. Class, social class. What is the social class? Social class is a group consisting of number of people who share more or less equal position in the society. What is class? When we stratified the society on the basis of wealth, then we call it as a class, right? What is a class? It is a group. It is a group of people, right, who shares more or less equal position in the society, right? Suppose X class, Y class, upper class, middle class, lower class, right? We stratified the society into three classes or two classes: upper class and the lower class, or upper, middle, and lower class. In industrial society, even there is a middle class, upper class, middle class, and the lower class. So when the social class is a group of a people or a number of a people who share more or less equal position in this society. Within the social class, people tend to share the same values, beliefs, exhibit the similar pattern of behavior and consumption. Some social classes are ranked as a higher and lower, right? Because it's a social class. Class is one of the principles of not the principle. Actually, wealth is the principle and class is an example of the wealth of social stratification. It is one of the class is one of the criteria of social stratification, right? And in social stratification, some classes are ranked as higher and lower, right? And the social class people, that the people in the one group or one class are homogeneous type. Homogeneous type means they share same values, similar type of the values. They exhibit a similar pattern of the behavior and consumption. They are homogeneous type. But people on the different strata, right? That is, when we divide the classes, when we divide the people on the basis of the classes, then they become the heterogeneous, right? What is a class? The homogeneous group which share, more or less equal position, or they have similar type of a belief and exhibit the similar preferences or behavior and of consumption, right? They exhibit the similar pattern of behavior and consumptions, right? Social classes differs from one society to another, and their standing in society may also change over a time. Some classes may be defined by the parameters such as income and occupation. The belongingness to a social class influences decisions such as choice of residence, type of holiday, means of entertainment, and the leisure class. Okay, let me explain it. See, a social class, we divide the classes on the basis of wealth, right? Uh, it is a social class is a group of people who share more or less equal position in the society, right? They have a similar kind of beliefs, they have similar kinds of the values, right? And they have a similar, they exhibit the similar kind of behavior and consumptions, right? So that this belongingness of We can divide the classes on the basis of income or occupation, right? That the belongingness of one to a social class influences the decisions, like choice of residence. Those who have more money or those who owns the mode of production may prefer to live in locality which is more posh and more which is more cost, right? Which is costlier, right? The type of holidays, then again it depends. While the middle class will prefer to live in those, though the type of the residence of middle class is economical, right? They don't prefer to or they cannot prefer or afford to spend much on the residence. The type of holidays, there will be a different in the taste of holidays. Those who have money, right? Those who are in higher rank, those who have more wealth, right? The upper class, they prefer to spend holidays in some other country, while those who have less mode of production or less access to the economic resources, their taste of holidays would be different, right? The means of entertainment or the leisure could be different. It depends on the classes. Actually, it depends on the wealth, how much you can afford, right? On the residence, on the holidays, on the entertainment and the leisure pattern. Then the social group influences. A social group is collection of individual who share some common attitude and sense of relationship as a relation of interaction with each other. Social group, that is those who share some common interest, common attitude, a relationship of interaction. Social group may be primarily where face-to-face interaction takes place frequently, such as families, work group, study groups. Secondary groups are those where relationships are more formalized and less personal in nature. So, social group influences, like family influences the buying behavior or the purchase decision, right? A work group influences the purchase decisions, right? What type of work group we have? The study group influences are uh, purchase decisions, right? While these are the primary groups, while the secondary groups, they are more formalized and less personal in nature, like your uh, um, club members, right? They are more formalized and less personal in nature. They impact the decision buying behavior and the purchase decision of the consumer. Then family influences are very important external factor, right? Because family is a primary group. It is one of the strongest source of influence on the consumer behavior, and the strongest influence on the child is that of his family, because it's a primary group, and he imbibes many behavior pattern from other family members subconsciously, and these influences tend to stay with him even after attaining the adulthood, because family is a primary group and it plays an important role in formation of attitude of an individual, perception of an individual's subconsciously, right? The child imbibes many behavioral pattern from the family, and these influences tend to stay with him even after attaining the adulthood. Further, within the family, many decisions are made jointly with various members existing different degree of influence. The changing structure of families as a joint family situation gradually gives way to the single nuclear family, also influences the consumer behavior. Suppose if I want to buy a refrigerator, right? Then if it is a joint family, right, or even if it is a nuclear family, then everyone mutually decides of which company we would like to buy, whether we would like to buy a double door, whether we need a double door or a single door, what should be the color of the fridge, right, refrigerator. So all these small things, the family plays an important influential factor in your purchasing decision of consumers. Then personal influences plays an important role. What are the personal influences? Each individual is influenced by the family. We discussed about it, with the social class, subculture, culture group to which he belongs, and yet he has his own distinct personality which influences his decision and behavior as a consumer. Each decision process is outcome of interplay of personal and social variable. We discussed that the individual factors, that attitude, right, motives, and other individual factors, as well as those group factor plays an important role in decision making. Each decision process. Let me go back to the diagram. That's this culture, this socio culture, this individual, this psychological field, motivation, perception, learning, perception, attitude, personality, as well as these group influential factors plays an important role. There is an interplay of the group determinants and the personal determinants which plays an important role in consumer behavior and attitude, consumer decision making, right? The process of evaluation of different products and different brands will vary from from person to person. For one, price may be the most important parameter in making a decision to buy a water geyser. For another, it is the convenience. For other, it could be the status symbol. So it is an interplay. This personal influences plays an important role, and each decision process is an interplay of the personal and the social variables, right? The process of evaluation of different product and different product varies from person to person. How you evaluate that product, it varies from person to person, right? So we discussed about the various group determinants and the individual determinants which impacts the decision making process of the consumers, right? Now there are various models of consumer behavior, right? There are three models of consumer behavior: the Howard Shake model, the second is the Engel Collett Blackwell model. These both model presents the comprehensive model of individual buying behavior, while the family buying behavior explain the decision process and influence that come into play when buying is being done for joint use by the family. So there are three models: the Howard Sheet model and the Ingle-Collett Blackwell model. These are the individual buying behavior, and family buying behavior is the joint family behavior. The Howard Sheet model, this model recognizes the consumer decision making under three different problem solving levels. There are three levels. The first level describe the extensive problem solving where the consumer does not have any basic information or knowledge about the brands or have any preference for any product. In this situation, the consumer will seek an information about all the different brands in the market before purchasing. The first level is when consumer don't have any information which can fulfill the needs or wants of the consumer, right? In this situation, the consumer will seek the information about all different brands in the market before purchasing. The second level is limited problem solving level. There was the first was the extensive problem solving level. The limited problem solving level, when consumer have a little knowledge about the market or a partial knowledge about what they want to purchase. In order to arrive at a brand preference, some comparative brand information is sought. The third level is habitual or routinized response behavior, when the consumer knows very well about the different brand and can differentiate between the different characteristics of each product, and his repeat buying decision is usually a brand replenishment decision in favor of a preferred brand. So there are three situations, three level. The first is extensive problem solving, when the consumer don't have any knowledge about the brands of the product, right? Second is when they have somewhat knowledge about the brands and the product, they can compare and contrast. And the third is they are the habitual or the routinized response. They know what to purchase and which brand to purchase, right? This model explains the buying decision process with the help of four sets of variables, right? So this model explains the buying decision process with the four sets of variables. These variables are the input variable, the perceptual or the learning construct, the output, and the exogenous variable. Four variables are there. The input variable consists of stimuli like price, quality, distinctiveness presented by the marketer, which have both significant and symbolic impact. Input variable also include the social variable like family, class, society, reference group. Remember that model, right? So input variables plays an important role. It could be the price, it could be the quality, it could be the distinctive feature presented by the marketer, product, price, promotions, right? And other symbolic impact like social variables like family, social class, culture, reference group, subculture, right? Then comes the learning construct, comprises of psychological variables such as motive, attitude, brand, comprehensive choice criteria that enable the buying intentions, right? Then the learning construct comes from the individual construct, that is variables like, remember that, motives, attitude, perception, brands, comprehensive, and choices that enables the buying intentions. The perceptual stimuli explains how consumer receives and understand the information from input stimuli and other part of the model. For example, the stimulus ambiguity results when the consumer does not understand the message from the environment. The perceptual bias occurs if the consumer distorts the information received so that it fits his or her established needs or experiences. See, we have discussed about the input, the perceptual and the learning concept is what? The perception. Perceptual stimuli is what? Perceptual stimuli is when the consumer, perceptual stimuli explains how the consumer receives and understands the information from the input stimuli, right? Understand how the consumer receives and understand the information from the input stimuli, how well he get the, how well he understands or receives the information from the input stimuli, right? Right. For example, if there is an ambiguity results in the consumer does not understand the message from the environment, then the perceptual bias occurs. What is perceptual bias? Perceptual bias is the consumer distorts the information received so that it can fit his or her established needs or experiences. So there are the perceptual bias. Then the third variable is output variable, is the purchase decision as a result, the post purchase evaluation of either satisfaction or dissatisfaction, right? The last one, post purchase decision. The former will result in, if consumer is satisfied with purchases, it will strengthening of the brand comprehension and brand attitude. If consumer is dissatisfied, it will trigger off the reaction of negative attitude, low attention to the product stimuli, poor brand comprehension, and negative attention of the purchase. Then fourth is exogenous variable are not shown as a being a part of decision making process but may have important bearing on overall decision as such. These include the importance of purchase, consumer personality trait, religion, and the time pressure, right? So four variables, remember four variable. The first variable is input variable, where group variable, the marketers and the individual variable plays an important role. Then comes second is learning and perception. Perception is when when perception is how well the consumer takes the stimuli from the external and the external environment. If it get confused, then the consumer become perceptual biased. Perceptual biased is when they distort the information that fits according to the needs, right? Then comes the exogenous environment. What is the exogenous variable? Exogenous variable is that variable that is a being a part of a decision making, right? When they take the decisions, output variable before exogenous variable is output variable. Output variable is when they take the purchase decision. It can lead to either to dissatisfaction or dissatisfaction. Then exogenous factors, this is not shown as a being a part of a decision making, but it plays an important bearing in overall decision making. Like the this includes the important of consumer, like the personality trait plays an important role, religion plays an important role in purchasing decision, whether this our religion allows this or not. At the time pressure plays an important role, right? Is this clear? Next model is Engel, Collat, and Blackwell model, right? This model explains the buying behavior process with the help of five components: information input, information processing, decision processing, decision processing variable, and external influences. So, in this model, there are five components: information input, information processing, decision process variable, and external influences. Information input, this component includes all marketing stimuli like advertisements, sales promotions, product price, point of purchase stimuli, and non-marketing stimuli like information input shared by the friends, families, and colleagues. Once you have exposed to the information from variety of sources, you begin to process this information going through the stages of exposure, attention, comprehension, acceptance, and retention of the information, right? And the consumer utilize the stored memory relevant to this purchase in processing the information before retaining the actionable input for your decision process. So, information input, there are various stimuli, right? And the memory plays an important role, right, in this information process. Next process is decision making, right? Input, there are various stimuli of input, right? Then the next was the information processing, right? These stimuli, right? These stimuli as well as the stored memory plays an important role relevant in the processing of the information, right, before retaining it as an actionable input to the decision processing. Then the next component, the decision making process, right, that you could enter the decision making process at any time during the information processing technique, right? Information process is shown in comprise of the sequential stage of problem recognition, search of the alternatives, alternative evaluation, choices, and outcome, right? This is decision process. When once you arrive at the decision based on the alternative evaluation, which turn thus impacted by both individual differences and the external influences, this will lead to purchase. The outcome of purchase could be satisfaction or result in the post purchase dissatisfaction, right? Fully meet the expectation, right? The outcome will now become the feedback and stored in the memory for reference and the next purchase related to decision making situation, right? The individual variables like demographic, motives, beliefs, attitude, personality, values, lifestyle, we discussed all these motives. And the external factors like culture, subculture, reference group, social group, we discussed about these to impact the stages of both information processing and decision making. right? If any of the important reference group member like colleague, right, of your office has expressed strong negative opinion about the after sales service of a product or the brand, that brand will not be considered as an alternative that you evaluate during the decision process, right? So there are the five component information input. There are various stimuli of information input. You process that information which you get from the external stimuli, as well as, so if some information is present in the memory, you process that information, and during the information process one can lead to the decision making process, right? Then there are the various decision process variables, process variable, like various external stimuli, culture, subculture, marketers, social group, reference group, and the internal processes, right? They also plays an important role, right? And this decision process can lead to this process leads to the output that can results in either satisfaction or dissatisfaction. If satisfaction, that will become the feedback, and it will you will keep it in your mind for the second purchase. And if it leads to the dissatisfaction, you will never again go for that product or for that brand. And then again the external factor plays an important role, right? Applications of consumer behavior in marketing, we'll discuss about this in our next lecture. Till namaskar.